On off.
On.
The first item on the agenda is the election of chair. So can I have nominations for chair of the subcommittee today, please? Do I have any other nominations? No, thank you. I declare Councillor Wells chair of the subcommittee this morning.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning, everybody. Item 2 on the agenda is members' interests. Do members have any interest to declare this morning, please? No, thank you. So welcome all to the meeting this morning. My name is Councillor Nick Wells. I'm chair of the licensing subcommittee hearing. Before we start, I'd like to remind you of a few housekeeping arrangements. If you wish to speak, please can you indicate that you wish to do so. To enable your microphone, please press the middle button, which will turn green, and the microphone will light up red at the top. Please also remember to press the middle button when you finish speaking. It's particularly important that all members use their microphones so that the audio can be picked up from the live stream. In the event of a fire alarm sounding during the meeting, please stand and follow the meeting administrator to the fire evacuation point outside the building. As mentioned, the meeting is being filmed on the Council's YouTube channel for live and subsequent broadcasting, and the whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there is confidential or exempt items. Thank you. In the room with me here today at Pathfinder House, we have Councillors Criswell and Howell, to my right and left, members of the subcommittee, Luke Elford, the Council's legal advisor, on my right, and the Democratic Services representative. I will now ask officers from the licensing team to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Hi all, William Della Refuge, licensing officer. Thank you, Chair.
Hi, I'm Sarah Marden. I'm also a licensing officer. In this case, I'm acting as responsible authority as well.
Good morning, I'm Melanie Draper. I'm Environmental Health Officer, dealing with noise and nuisance in the St Neots area.
Thank you all. I think that is all of the responsible authority members as well, so that's covered. Yep. Next, can I introduce representatives for the applicant to introduce themselves, please, gentlemen? Thank you.
Morning, Graham Hughes, Director of the St Neots Rugby Club and the applicant for the licence.
Morning all, Paul Warmington, Chair and Director of St Neots Rugby Club.
Thank you. I will now ask interested parties to introduce themselves. Please could you state your name and who you're representing, if not yourselves, and please also indicate if you would like to address the subcommittee this morning. Thank you. If we can go from the lady in pink. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Would you mind just giving us the names of the people that you're representing, please?
Could I ask you just to press the button in the middle of your microphone? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the two people that have asked me just to speak briefly on their behalf is Mr. Simon Conway. He made a written representation, and Mr. and Mrs. Ian Dixon, who also made a written representation, but they're both unable to attend today because of work commitments.
Good morning, my name is Ian Edwards. I wish to speak at the right time. I will also be representing my wife, Rosemary Edwards.
Thank you. And gentleman in the dark, Paliva.
The light on? Oh, good morning. My name is Brian Wellham. I'm an interested neighbour of the rugby club. I may or may not speak, if that's okay with you.
Thank you. And the lady to the right.
Hello, my name's Anne Hooton. I'm representing my mother, Mrs. Joyce Bollens, who lives directly next to the rugby club, and I would like to speak if possible. Thank you.
I'm here supporting my wife and my mother-in-law.
Thank you, everybody. So I think I have, if I understand correctly, I have four people or couples who wish to speak this morning. Thank you for that. Is there anything else that I haven't covered today? I don't think so. Good. Moving on then to item 4, which is the licensing subcommittee procedure. You would have received within the hearing papers that were circulated to you a copy of the licensing subcommittee procedure. The hearing will commence under this procedure. Any representations that have been made should be relevant to the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. As you will see, in the interest of fairness, the procedure provides for an equal amount of time for the applicant or responsible authorities and interested parties to address the subcommittee. This is usually 20 minutes, and I propose that we will adhere to 20 minutes this morning. In the interest, as I say, in the case of interested parties, it's shared between those in attendance, and I can use my discretion. Since I'm hearing that there are 4 speakers within your interested parties, I'll propose that you've got a maximum of 5 minutes each to speak. So we'll do it that way. Do any parties present have any questions or clarifications that they need at this stage? Thank you. Yes. Got it.
Can I clarify, have members of the committee
Sorry, yes, lady on the right first, please. Yeah.
Those photographs that you had, we
Yes.
did send some, because nobody had, so it's a long story, but my mother-in-law is blind. So all of the communications that you've sent out until we got involved, which was in early July, then we had no knowledge of anything going on. The documents that came out with those photographs on the 19th, we didn't get because for an administrative error, it didn't go out to all of the addressees and carbon copy addressees, CCs, that I had on my email. And we picked it up again once we saw further communications at the beginning of August. So we have 4 photographs which you don't have copies of, but I have on a USB stick, which show not the photographs that you took for how it impacts the Barrington Way people, but this is how it directly affects the closest person to the club. So there's 1/2 a metre between my mother-in-law's garden and the back of the rugby club. I have spoken to Paul Warmington about it, and he's aware. And we, outside of this, we're hoping to set up some form of communication so that my mother-in-law isn't disadvantaged.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I think that's that's fine. And if it's what the purpose of the photograph is to show the distance between your mother-in-law's residence and the club, and that's
I didn't
clear.
catch much of that.
So the purpose of the photograph is to show the distance between your mother-in-law's residence and the club. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. I think one of the applicants had a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Is this the right time to raise the postcode on the agenda?
There's no harm in mentioning it at this stage. Yes. So just to
No
clarify
worries.
that.
So when we did receive this, we did email back to Democratic Services on, I think it's the 4th of August, because the postcode shown is for actually the postcode of Graham as the applicant, not the postcode of the rugby club. Postcode of the rugby club is PE191RU. and that was correct on application, but is shown here as P196RR.
Thank you for that. Yes, we have discussed this with Democratic Services and with the licensing team, and I think that's all understood and not problematic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir. That's worked lovely. It is PE191RU, Romeo Uniform.
Because the one you gave me when you emailed in was 6RU.
It shouldn't have been. It should have been 1RU.
Okay, so it's one.
It's PE191RU, as on original application. Yeah, I think the 6RR, as we say, is Graham's.
Because you emailed in and said we've got it down as 6RR, and it should be 6RU.
Then my apologies for correcting you incorrectly.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so we're finalised on PE91RU. Yes, we all agreed on that. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to the hearing. I will now invite the licensing officer to present the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Huntingdonshire District Council, as the licensing authority, has received an application for a new premises licence from St Neots Rugby Union Football Club Limited for the premises St Neots Rugby Club, the Clubhouse, New Street, St Neots, PE191RU. The application was received on the 6th of June 2024. As required under the Licensing Act 2003, notice of the application was advertised by blue notices displayed at or near the premises from the 13th of June 2024 and in the local newspaper on the 19th of June. The initial 28-day consultation period ended on the 4th of July 2024. Due to errors with this notice, the consultation period was extended by the licensing authority until the 24th of July 2024. A copy of the application is attached as Appendix A, which is the application itself, and Appendix B, which is a copy of the plans. The premises license application is applying for the following activities: performance of plays indoors, Friday 2300 hours to 0200 hours, and Saturday 2300 hours to midnight. Provision of film indoors, Monday to Thursday and Sunday 1100 hours to 2300 hours, and Friday and Saturdays 1100 hours to 0200 hours. The provision of indoor sports events, Monday to Thursday as well as Sunday 1100 hours to 2300 hours, and Friday and Saturday 2300 hours to 0200 hours. There's also the provision of live music indoors, which are Friday and Saturday 2300 hours to 0200 hours. Provision of recorded music indoors, Friday and Saturday 2300 hours to 0200 hours, as well as provision of performance of dance indoors, Friday and Saturday, 2300 hours to 0200 hours. There's also anything of a similar nature to that falling within E, F, or G, Friday and Saturday, 2300 to 0200 hours. Late night refreshment indoors, Friday and Saturday, 2300 hours to 0200 hours. Supply of alcohol, both on and off sales, Monday to Thursday and Sunday, 1100 hours to 2300 hours. Friday and Saturday, 1100 hours to 0200 hours. The hours the premises are open to the public were not indicated on the application. Section M of the application form addresses the 4 licensing objectives. Any proposals made in this section are normally translated directly into enforceable conditions that will be attached to the premises license. Paragraphs 8.41 to 8.49 and Section 10 of the Home Office guidance issued under Section 182 refer to the operating schedule and license conditions. As part of the consultation, the responsible authorities, as determined under the Licensing Act 2003, were consulted on the application. Their responses can be seen in summary at Appendix C. During the period for representation, a total of 15 valid representations were received from other persons. These representations and any subsequent correspondence are attached as Appendix D. A person who has submitted a relevant representation is entitled to address the licensing subcommittee at the hearing and ask questions of any other party at the hearing. Not all matters raised within the representation may be relevant matters for consideration under the Licensing Act. Extensive mediation was undertaken with the applicant and local residents, as well as responsible authorities, both licensing and environmental health. A copy of the result of the mediation is attached as Appendix E. During the mediation, 2 representations were withdrawn by other persons, and the representations from licensing and environmental health were also withdrawn. However, as not all representations were withdrawn, a hearing was still required. The licensing authority must carry out its functions under the Act with a view to promote the licensing objectives. Each objective has equal importance, and they are as follows: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The subcommittee must also have regard to its statement of licensing policy, any statutory guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the Human Rights Act 1988, and the Live Music Act 2012. The Council must also fulfill its obligations under Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, and that is to do all that it reasonably can to prevent crime and disorder in its district. In making a decision, this application must be determined on its individual merits, having regard to the representations and supporting documents included as part of the report, along with additional information considered relevant at this hearing. As part of the decision process, the subcommittee is required to give its reasons for any decision arrived at. Where the licensing authority considers that action under its statutory powers is appropriate, it may take any of the following steps: grant the application as applied for, refuse the application, add any additional conditions to the premises license, exclude any licensable activities applied for, or amend dates and times of the licensable activities applied for. Any decision made by the subcommittee must be reasonable and proportionate and promote the licensing objectives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, William. Do any members of the subcommittee have questions for the licensing officer? No. Thank you. Does the applicant or his representatives have any questions for the licensing officer?
No.
Thank you. Does any responsible authority have any questions? Ladies? No. Thank you. And do any of the interested parties have any questions? Please note questions only at this stage, please. Do you have any questions for the licensing officer?
They're not going to both turn on at the same time.
No, just to use one
Sorry, thank you. I didn't hear any reference to the Equity Act. I'm particularly concerned that throughout all of this, I've been trying to get somebody to champion my mother-in-law who is blind. She can't read the blue notices that you put on lampposts, and she.
Local newspapers aren't delivered.
Yeah, sorry, local newspapers aren't delivered, and she doesn't have her own email address or access to the internet. So there was, when I've spoken to a lot of people around this table, and I was pointed to the website which has got the Equity Act in it. There was a committee with, I'm not sure about her surname, Claudia Deitch, and that was, I think, folded in 2023, but it was there to look after the interests of disabled people within the St. Neots area. Why is there not any reference that takes care of the interests of disabled people? Oh, sorry, yeah.
So the public sector equality duty is an overarching duty that the council has to those with protected characteristics. It's something that is a golden thread that runs throughout everything that the council do. In terms of this application, it was advertised in accordance with the relevant legislation. You are obviously aware of it. You're here today representing your mother's interests, and you've got adequate opportunity to put those forward in the course of the representations. So as far as the council is concerned, the duty has been complied with.
Is there not some duty on the part of the council to make sure that all of the people that are going to be impacted receive notice of it. And that means that you have to take care of those that are unable to read the notices.
As I said, sir, the application was correctly advertised in accordance with the law. We're here today for this licensing subcommittee hearing. Your equality concerns are noted, but really we're here today to deal with the licensing objectives and how they might be impacted by the application. And if you want to raise issues of equality, this is not the correct forum for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Luke. Any other questions from interested parties to the licensing officer? No. Okay. So I'll now ask the applicant and his representative to address the subcommittee for no more than 20 minutes and to call any witnesses if relevant. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I'll hand over to my chair, Paul Warmington.
Who will try and stick to 20 minutes. So, thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody here. St Neots Rugby Club is a volunteer-led organisation. It provides rugby to the community of St Neots and its surrounding villages for all ages and genders from the age of 6 years and upwards. The club offers a range of mini, junior and senior rugby options, both contact and non-contact, with approximately 450 members. The club currently operates a senior men's first 15 team, a development squad and a vets team, alongside a senior ladies first 15. And then mini and junior sections, we offer mixed rugby teams from the age of 6, progressing to junior girls and junior boys rugby, leading into a Colts Academy where players transition into senior rugby. We also offer walking and touch rugby sessions. Beyond team development, our club facilities are used by other organisations, including St Neots Town Junior Football Club, a Nice Try Junior Club, and then a diverse range of groups use our main hall, from keep fit classes to retiree luncheon clubs. We strive to be part of that community, supporting and actively playing a part in groups such as the St Neots Initiative, an independent community-led organisation committed to making St Neots a better place to live, work and play. It is well known the benefits of playing sport, be it as a child or as an adult. Rugby in particular promotes many physical, social and mental skills. Rugby's value of teamwork, respect, enjoyment, discipline and sportsmanship are what makes the game of rugby special for those who enjoy the environment and culture they create. They define our game and define what we're striving to achieve at St Neots Rugby Club. We are a membership club with an adopted constitution which sets out how the club runs and manages itself and the responsibility of individuals and committees. Every year, committee members are nominated and voted into committee positions. And the club is a private limited by guarantee without share capital and is a registered community amateur sports club, a CASC. This ensures the club is run responsibly and in a sustainable manner. Many of the responses rightly point out that we're a sports club, not a nightclub. So I'd first like to explain why the rugby club need to operate as a business and create income. We receive no external funding from local authorities or our governing body, the RFU. For the club to continue and remain in St Neots, we must be self-sustaining and ensure we cover all expected expenditure via membership fees, sponsorship and income earned through lettings of the facility. We have been successful in receiving a number of grants. However, these grants have been for specific projects and not to support the day-to-day running and therefore cost incurred by the club. At this year's AGM held in June, the club's membership signed up a budget of $151,000. This is how much the Executive Committee believe is needed to ensure we can provide rugby and the facilities that support that for the 24-25 season. Membership to the rugby club is kept as low as possible so as not to provide a barrier to entry and in line with other local rugby clubs. This is projected to bring in an income of £40,000. So after sponsorship and rental income from groups that hire the main hall, we believe we will have a shortfall of £91,000. This is the amount needed to be earned to ensure we can still provide rugby to all of our members. From my personal perspective, I've been a member of the rugby club for nearly 30 years, and in that time I've been a coach, a member of a committee, recently rejoining the committee and putting myself forward as chair. I did this because I thought I could help make rugby better. I haven't really been able to do this as well as I've liked, as the majority of my time has been spent running a business. It's a sad truth that without the solid business foundation and a sustainable regular income stream, this rugby club wouldn't exist. However, I'd like to reassure all of those in the room today, the community that hosts us and the residents that are our closest neighbours, we do not operate with a commercial, single-minded, profit-led approach. We're a group of volunteers trying our hardest through professional and responsible management to ensure we still have a rugby club and can still provide rugby with all of its associated benefits to those members in St Neots and the surrounding villages. Aside from rugby activity, we have two income streams, the letting of the main hall for events and the use of the common itself. To ensure we're meeting the obligations of our current premise licence and acting as a responsible neighbour, we work extensively with Logic Safety Solutions, a local company who have donated their time to support the rugby club, to produce hire agreements that enable us to make the decision about whether an event is appropriate to be held at the rugby club and that the hirer is aware of their responsibilities. In case of events that are held on the common, any specific licences that are needed, along with a thorough event management plan is in place, and the hirer can demonstrate that there'll be no undue impact on neighbours. We accept that last August we took a booking for a car event that turned out to be wholly unsuitable to be hosted on the common. We did all of our due diligence prior to accepting that booking, speaking with facilities that had previously hosted this event, where we received positive feedback. It very soon became apparent the hirer was not sticking to their event management plan. We stepped in to try and shut down the event. It was made clear to the hirer we would not accept any further bookings from them, and I personally replied to all communication received, accepting full responsibility and apologising for the event as it was. Again, I'd like to offer my assurance here that the rugby club will not accept such a booking in the future. The following is a list of bookings we have taken this year, including those that we have until the end of the year. So for the main hall, we have hosted, or will host, 8 children's parties, 3 30th birthday parties, 4 40ths, 4 50ths, 3 60ths and a 70th, a hen party, a wake, an engagement party, a christening, a baby shower, a wedding reception, a charity comedy night. We've also hosted end of season awards for St Neots Town Football Club, St Neots Hockey Club and Priory Parkside Football Club, of which 10% of the bar profit is donated back to the respective clubs. Of these events, we have applied for 2 late licences with 5 more expected. Therefore, out of the 33 events that we intend to host or have hosted, 26 of these have finished at 11 o'clock. For events held on the common, we have had a car meet, a dog fun day and the Hunt's Canine Dog Show. I've listed these to demonstrate the type of events that we are hosting. We are not planning to, nor do we plan to be a nightclub or a sports bar. We are a rugby club whose aim is to provide rugby to its members with the shortfall in monies needed to enable this be made up from responsibly letting our premises. We do not intend to change this going forward. So hopefully now you have a good grasp of what St Neots Rugby Club does and the reasons why. To do all of this, we have to run a business, but a responsible one that is at the heart of community, a positive, engaged relationship with neighbours. Moving to the application, the rugby club met with representatives from HDC licensing team to understand firstly what was required and then to take advice on the application process. We are applying for a licence that allows us to continue to operate as we currently are, mindful of the fact that temporary off-sales easement extension ceases in March 25. When reading the responses received, it's clear that many are worried about the stated finish time. The original application stated we were looking for an 0200 finish on Friday and Saturday. And we understand this has led to concern and objection. As set out earlier, it's not our intention to operate as a venue open until this time, and we are only too happy to agree to a finish time of midnight on Friday and Saturday, with the exception of an 0200 hours for New Year's evening. A majority of the responses cite noise and public nuisance as reasons to refuse the application. We have had noise complaints associated with events that have been hosted on the common, these being the car event referred to earlier, a regular car meet that is no longer hosted by us, and the St Neots Food Festival. We are not aware of any noise complaints outside of those associated with these events, and as demonstrated already, we already host some events until the time that we have applied for under our temporary event notices and have not had complaints of noise or of public nuisance. We will continue to operate responsibly, first through the vetting of the type of booking. All hirers are required to sign and follow the booking rules, which include the need to avoid causing public nuisance, and then ensuring our bar staff and general manager are regularly checking doors are shut, that those on the patio area are acting responsibly, and the hire acts in accordance to the conditions of letting. A number of respondents have also raised crime and disorder as a reason for objection. We are very pleased and proud of our relationship with Cambridgeshire Constabulary. We have had no known issues of crime or disorder associated with events at the rugby club, and after contacting Cambridgeshire Constabulary, we understand that they were contacted as a responsible authority to respond to this licence, with which they had no objections. As previously stated, we will operate responsibly through the vetting of the bookings that we take, and our bar staff and general manager have completed or will be completing their responsible alcohol sales training, ensuring their understanding of the relevant licensing legislation and their responsibility to prevent underage sales and sales of alcohol to people who are drunk. The premise licence application also seeks permission for the sale of alcohol for rugby games played by the home nation teams outside of the standard hours permitted. Again, we understand by reading the responses received this has caused confusion. What we're seeking for is the ability to open and show games when the home nations, England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, are either in a World Cup that is hosted in the Southern Hemisphere or when the British and Irish Lions are touring in the Southern Hemisphere. These events only happen every 4 years and are probably only financially viable to open if, in the case of a World Cup, one of these home nation teams has made it to the semi-final or the final. Since 2003, when the rugby club opened early to show England beat Australia in the 2003 World Cup final, we've only been open early in 2011, when the World Cup was hosted in New Zealand, and in 2019, when it was hosted in Japan. We are very happy to either withdraw the element of the application or to agree wording that meets what the rugby club is asking for and is agreeable with respondents. It is also clear that the off-sales element of the licence application has been misunderstood. The rugby club is not seeking to act as an off-licence in any way, shape or form. What we require from off-sales is that anybody purchasing alcohol from our bar during rugby games or whilst rugby activity is happening on the common during licence hours, that they can take this alcohol outside of the bar to watch either the team that play or train. We would also like third parties that are hosting events on the common to be able to do similar. For example, attendees at the dog show that was hosted last weekend are able to purchase alcohol from the bar and take this outside whilst watching the dog show. We're certainly not seeking permission to sell alcohol to anyone that isn't attending an event or activity that is being either hosted or ran by ourselves. Due to this process, I met with 3 of our neighbours, so Lorna, and Ian and Rosemary. We've had a very constructive meeting, and I'm pleased that this process has enabled us to meet, and I want to thank the 3 of them for their constructive comments and input. We discussed ways in which the communication between the rugby club and its neighbours can be improved. We now have an events page on our website where we will keep an up-to-date list of events that we will host on the common. We're planning to kickstart quarterly residents forum that is going to be co-hosted by residents in the rugby club. It could be somewhere where we talk constructively. We've also committed to providing clear signage to reinforce the message about leaving quietly and respectfully. And I do hope that this is the start of a collaborative relationship with the rugby club and its closest neighbours. Before I finish, I would just like to say again, the rugby club is not a commercial operation. We're not a single-minded, profit-led approach. Yes, we need to be able to create an income stream that covers the shortfall between membership, sponsorship income and expected expenditure. But our activities off the pitch are led by the same values we have on the pitch, especially with that word respect. I've hopefully set out to you all the need for the licence as amended, where we believe there is still room for clearer wording, and how we will responsibly uphold the licensing objectives in our activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any members of the subcommittee have questions for the applicant, please? Councillor Howell.
Yeah. I noticed that you didn't mention there are only 18th or 21st as the list of parties. Is that a conscious decision you made as part of your vetting?
Yes, very much so. So within the licence, again, we did write that we do let to members 18th and 21st, but again, we know those people, they're members of the rugby club. But we do not do 18th, 21st to general public, nor would we want to. We believe the risk is too high. It's something we don't want to do, and it's part of being, as we said, that responsible business, effectively.
Councillor Criswell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warren, for your comprehensive presentation. I'm pleased to hear that you're engaging with local people. I wondered if you'd considered having a liaison forum where those conversations could happen regularly rather than just as a result of this application, because that may help going forward. And the other question I have is you mentioned the off sales being intended for use on the field. Is this a public open space field, or is that part of the club which is owned by the club membership only? I'm not clear from the application whether this is a public area we're talking about or whether it's just a club area. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. No, so on the first point, those meetings will continue. We're looking for quarterly to start with. If it's needed more, we will have more, but we are certainly going to start with quarterly meetings and begin to work with residents far better than we have done. Coming to the field itself, so we are on the Common in St Neots. The Common it's common land. So we have a lease with the Rowleys, managed through the common rights proprietors. So it's public space, there is a footpath that runs through that, there's obviously the access that is required as common land. The rugby club owns the brick of the building, and that's it. So yes, it's the area within there as well. Obviously we don't have control of that area. We cannot stop people coming onto it. Again, we try and work with residents where we can. A good example of that being the football club have some goals that are kept on the field themselves. Those goals were on the right-hand side of the field if you're looking from the rugby club, and it caused people to congregate around the goals, which was causing a nuisance via noise. So working with the residents and then with the football club, those goals are now all the way on the far left by the road, the furthest away from residents that we can do. But yeah, it's common land, it's not owned by us, and access is free to all.
Thank you. Any further questions from members? Well done. Thank you. Do any officers present, licensing or legal representative, have questions for the applicant, please? Thank you. Does any, responsible authority likewise? Thank you. Okay, so do any of those people who have made representations have any questions for the applicants? And again, just as digress, this is for questions only at this stage, not for statements. So any questions to the applicant? No. Sorry, yes, please continue.
Just one question for Paul on this. Is there any control on any member of the public who just could be passing the clubhouse to go in and buy a drink? Or can that happen to anyone, just as a matter of interest? So you've got sorry, yeah.
Thank you, sorry, yes. I see, so when the bar is open, due to activity of any kind, if it's a rugby bar that is open, no, there is no control. So you can walk in, you could buy a pint. No, is the answer, I think, yeah.
So you could buy a pint and walk around the field when the bar is open officially, just as a member of public.
So yes is the answer to that. With the current off sales as it is at the moment, with the easement we've got, we can sell a pint to somebody who can walk around and take that off. If we aren't able to get the off sales, we won't be able to sell that pint to anybody who could leave the building. But yeah, currently we can.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. Okay, any other questions from interested parties at this stage? In which case we will move on, and I'll now ask the responsible authority to address the subcommittee for no more than 20 minutes and call any witnesses if relevant. If you have anything? No. Nothing to present. Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move on from there. And now is the opportunity then for interested parties to address the subcommittee. And as I mentioned, as I can see effectively 4 speakers, so we'll allow 5 minutes for each speaker to address the subcommittee. Starting with a lady on the left, I think. Thank you.
I'd just like to open what I'm going to say, to stress at the outset the very amicable discussions that myself and Ian and Rosemary have had with Paul. And significant progress was made during the meeting that we had. I would also like to acknowledge, as I always have done in my dealings and emails with the club, the valuable community role which the club plays, particularly for the young people of St Neots. And I'd also like to place on record that it's disappointing that we have had to have a hearing this morning, because from the meeting that we had, we felt we were all on the same page, and the outstanding issues, as far as we're concerned, is more to do with the drafting of the proposed conditions and seasonal variations, which, to be honest, I'm not sure this is necessarily the right forum for them to be dealt with, but as we're here, that's what I'm going to deal with this morning. I think, as Paul has alluded to himself, most of the issues have arisen because the poor wording of the original application, particularly the 2 a.m. finishes on the Friday and Saturday nights, which did cause a huge amount of concern for local residents who believed that we were going to be dealing with that almost, well, every weekend of the year. And also, again, as Paul has acknowledged, the way that the wording of the off-sales clause has been dealt with. And moving on from that, I think we've had this extensive mediation, and unfortunately, we still are in a situation where we've got inaccurate and ambiguous wording for the seasonal variations and conditions in the mediation document. From our discussions with the club, Paul was very open with us and made very clear the club's intentions and needs and wants, which reassured us. But it's inevitable in the future the personnel running the club will change. And for that reason, it's really important. I am a qualified, although non-practicing lawyer, so the devil is in the detail as far as I'm concerned. And although the reassurances being given to us in this forum are very welcome and hugely appreciated, we have to have it nailed down in black and white now, so there is no ambiguity going forward. But I want to stress, particularly for also the lady from the press who is here, that there is absolutely no anonymity between the parties, and we are all on the same page.
So specifically, can you just nail down the concerns that you have and the sort of ambiguities?
Sorry, I really wanted to make that point at the outset. So getting into the detail, you've kindly confirmed that you have all had access to the photographs that I submitted. I'm sorry, I did try and get one showing the houses at the back of the clubhouse, but I understand you've got some better ones. But they do, I think, clearly illustrate how close the houses are to the edge of the rugby pitches. That's an important point that I really want the committee to take on board. The other point, which I think is really important to make, and again, I'm not sure if you've picked up on this, in page 39 of the pack, there is a plan showing the definition of the licensed premises. And the crucial thing to note is that the patio area is now going to be included in part of the licensed premises. So it will be covered by the on sales timings. So without a clear condition being put into the license to say that the use of the patio needs to stop at 10 o'clock in the evening or whichever time the committee feels appropriate. The risk or the concern for residents is that people drinking during whatever hours are decided on will be also able to drink on that patio, which is very close to neighbouring houses with the noise, etc., that will generate, which is why I have asked in my representation for there to be a very clear condition to be put onto the licence to say that the use of that patio has to stop at 10 o'clock in the evening. As it's drafted at the moment, it says any outstanding seating will be carefully monitored by staff to ensure it is being used in a responsible manner so as not to cause disturbance to local residents. That is good, but it does not have a clear end time, and that has caused a lot of concern.
Just so we've gone through your 5 minutes, as you probably just heard.
Have I?
So yes, if you can.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
The other point that I also wanted to make was about the off sales. Again, I think the wording in the mediation, by implication, I think it can be implied what is meant, but by saying, using the wording for these purposes, it nails it down to those purposes, and the restrictions about the plastic beakers and the timings could arguably not apply to anything that wasn't for those purposes. It needs to say off sales are only permitted for the three purposes that Paul alluded to, and on the condition that they will stop at a time to be agreed, so that the risk of disturbance to people whose houses back onto the pitches from noises outside are limited to a reasonable hour. And finally, my friend Ian here is going to talk a bit more about the seasonal variation, and how the home nations is defined. But again, it needs to say, whichever wording is used, that all sales of alcohol made under the seasonal variation are to be restricted to the sale of alcohol for consumption inside the rugby house clubhouse only, and not on the patio. If we've got people attending at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning who've had a great result and are celebrating, and they spill out onto the patio, you can see the issues. Those are the concerns, and I must just very quickly, because I was asked to put them forward, Mr. Conway, that was his concern about the extension in opening hours would extend the opportunity for disturbance. And Mr. and Mrs. Dixon, likewise, that was their main concern, that the longer hours would potentially expose them and their neighbours to greater disturbance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for summarising succinctly. Moving on to the next interested party. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If I can just echo all that Lorna said, and also if I can pass on my thanks to Paul and to the Rugby Club for all that they've done so far, and hopefully it's a start of something for the future. And it's good and reassuring to hear what he said. I think what I would like to say is that my wife and I moved here 10 years ago, not along with some people who've lived here. We moved here because it's quiet. Backing on to common land and across the road from the Rugby Club is more common land leading down to the river. Very, very quiet. And it does allow noise to transmit very easily. Anyone who knows anything about noise, I know somebody is here who does, the bass, for example, transmits itself into all sorts of places at great distance. There are a number of properties that are very close to the clubhouse. That must be recognised. It's already been talked about. I don't want to labour it, but that does need to be recognised, and I believe the Rugby Club are trying to do what they can. Part of the problems, I think, that have existed have been outside events, if I can call it that. And I know that one element of that, and I've just written here, noise is the elephant in the room, is noise from those events. And what's quite disturbing for my wife and myself has been we've heard young children screaming on the field in the dark with no apparent protection at all. Is that screaming good screaming or bad screaming? I'd hate to think it's bad screaming, that there's something happening that shouldn't be happening. And that does worry us. And, you know, that is something that I know that there's safeguarding that would come in, but it is something I need you to bear in mind. And bear in mind also that they have out-house events, but they also have in-house events, their own social events. So it does affect the Rugby Club as well. The rest of what Lorna has said about the off sales and the sale of alcohol, I won't repeat it all here. I agree with what she said. we have got wording that can be provided, and I think these are all the principles that we agreed with Paul when we went for the meeting, and I don't believe if we're far apart, it's very, very close, if at the most. And I think that can be agreed, and that should make you as the committee life a lot easier. With regard to the home nation teams, the seasonal variation, I did look up, and I'm not trying to be too clever here, Paul, I did look up definition of home nations. Now, when we met, we talked about there being, so they were going to watch games in the early hours of the morning for England and for the British and Irish Lions. But if you take home nations, it could exclude the Republic of Ireland, which would exclude the British and Irish Lions, and I don't think you want that. So that needs some definition. I have put some wording which was pretty well what we agreed at the time, and I've got some wording down there, and obviously they would need to keep inside doors and windows shut, subject to this easement that may change, that may end in March next year. But it is important to understand that that needs to be set down, and it is just international matches, because, for example, Australia have recently toured. Wales have recently toured Australia. They play club matches. So what we talked about was international matches. So again, it needs to be, it's definition. It's definition that needs to be clearly understood. What I will just say in summing up, because I expect my 5 minutes is coming up, to ask you as a committee to take these written representations and our verbal comments, not just individually, because they can be dismissed individually as not being significant, to take them collectively, because they hold much more weight. All our points should be seen as they stand and not be seen as individual comments and ignored as individual, but taken collectively. I think also it's very important for the subcommittee, whilst we've talked to the categories that you need to deal with legally, that the proposed licence application is not just about rugby activities, which we support, including the involvement of children and the like and the young people. It's about entertainment events for both the club and their private customers and how that impacts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have the gentleman at the far end in the dock pull over. Thank you.
Can you hear me? My general thoughts on this process is we believe that everything that the rugby club is telling us at the moment will be okay with them. They're looking after it. But my other thought is that if you're looking for an event, place to hold an event, a party, the rugby club seems to be a greatest place that you can go to, because you've got a much later license than any hotel that you stay in. If you stay in a hotel, you can drink till 2 in the morning. If you go as a paying customer, you get stopped at the bar at 11 o'clock or even 12 o'clock if they've got a special extension. This would enable the rugby club to be at a major advantage over other places. Therefore, it encourages them to get more business, which I know that you need that for the club, but for what purposes in the end you get it. That's basically all I need to say. It's the 2 o'clock late licensing news that concerns me, that with different management in the rugby club, we'll have a different result.
Thank you. And finally, the couple on the right-hand side. Thank you.
Good. I only spoke to Paul the day before yesterday. So he made some assurances which took away a lot of the concerns that we had. In that, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're reducing the Friday night and the Saturday night to midnight, and we don't, from my mother-in-law's perspective, we don't have any objection to that. The international games, which have just been discussed, why is that not done on an extension by extension basis? If it's once every 4 years, well, why wouldn't you apply for it? You said that the committee may change, absolutely, but more than that, the residents may change. And if I know your legal advisor doesn't want me talking about things that aren't considered by the forum, but if you had a family move in with autistic children and you had people waking them up in the middle of the night, it will be pretty traumatic for the whole family. And I've everything that I've read, and I know it's not the right forum, everything that I've read shows that there's no consideration given to people other than the fit, the healthy, and those that have got a voice to stand up and be counted. So that's the main point I wanted to make. The second smaller point, Paul's spoken about the forum. Why does the rugby club not have an escalation path? So in the past, there have been quite a lot of incidents that have affected my mother-in-law before she lost her sight and since she lost her sight. And these are the children of people that are visiting the rugby club, gathering behind the rugby club. The rugby club have put some benches to the rear, right next to the access to the common from 70 Lees Road. They have glasses out there, broken glasses, bottles, and in the past we have had people that were on the committee that Anne knew from her life in St Neots, and they would do something about it. But it was all informal. I think that you should have an escalation path, so either an email, or if it's more important than email, if there are drugs in use, sort of a telephone number, where people could pass the owners on to the rugby club to fix it. So one of the photographs that I would happy to pass on to somebody is that having had a function, the door to the kitchen is at the rear of the building, and somebody had thrown the bread onto the grass, and that it attracts vermin. So Paul has mentioned that this is for the birds. Well, if it's for the birds, you need to take it off the ground and make it available. You're shaking your head, madam.
Just to note that that's not an issue within the scope of the licensing committee. We don't deal with wildlife, or undesirable as I agree it is. Yeah, but yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think that those are the points. Like, just to add, the lady that we're talking about is 94 in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and has been registered blind for I think 8 or 9 years, and she doesn't raise issues that are trivial. When we explained to her what the notice that we received said, her first comments, and I've shared this with Paul and I've shared it with William, her first words were, "Are they trying to kill me?" You know, and that's how strongly she feels about it. She's lived there for 73 years, and nobody is actually consulting her.
Okay, well, as I say, we have already covered that consultation question, but thank you for your feedback, and I'm sure we all have concerns about, those who are, for whatever reason, disadvantaged in terms of age or disability. Thank you.
You have a hand up.
So we know, yes, just one moment, please. We've heard from all the interested parties. So now can I just go in the order of the groups that we've got here? But please, we will get to your question. Absolutely, yes. Thank you. So first of all, do members of the subcommittee have any questions for the interested parties, please? Thank you. Do any of the officers, licensing officer or the legal representative, have questions for the interested parties?
Thank you. Not for the interested parties, Chair, but I just have a couple of questions for the applicant, if I may, arising out of what the interested parties have said. You've heard about, I think the gentleman called it an escalation route. Do you have a telephone number that's held by the manager on duty that could be used by residents in the event that they need to complain And if not, would that be something that you might be willing to institute? Sorry.
We do for that general manager, and it is something we would definitely institute. Just to pick up, Michael and I spoke about this yesterday. Your question earlier, Council, was is it public or private land? We have a lot of problem the fact that it is open as it is. And to Michael's point, we put some benches out the back of our changing rooms to allow people to sit down to take boots off. That's then caused people to congregate and use that area. So we have, again, working with the police, we have put up CCTV in that area, we've put floodlights up, again, making sure they don't go into your mother-in-law's garden and trying to do our best. But yes, absolutely, we're happy to work with residents on that, happy to have a phone number, but again, just want the committee to understand we can't control the access to that, so we're very happy to do what we can, and of course we will continue to work.
Sorry, just in terms of the non-standard timings for rugby internationals, home internationals, whatever you want to call it, you said that it's something that you're not wedded to. Is it something you're minded to withdraw, or are you asking the committee to keep it as part of the application?
So again, as stated earlier, when we first started this process working with representatives, it was about trying to get a licence that encompassed the activity we had. If it's hard to find the right words, as a rugby club, we're very happy to apply on a case-by-case basis. The economic case for showing those games are getting harder and harder. Just consulting quickly with Graham, when England played in New Zealand this year, it would have cost us over £1,200 to show that one game. As we just said, yes, we are trying to create income, not lose money. To do that, we would have had to have sold, £2,500 worth of alcohol, which is not going to happen at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, that sort of thing. So the opportunity to show is getting less and less frequent for us, and I don't see it a problem doing a case-by-case basis because of that infrequency. And if it's easier for everybody, we will just withdraw that part and then apply through a temporary event notice if needed.
Thank you. Any other questions from William or Luke, yourself? No? Well done. Thank you. So now as the applicant, your opportunity. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Lorna, did you want to ask a question back? Yeah.
My concern, Paul, is if you take away the international seasonal variation from the licence, subject to getting the wording right, if it's done under a temporary event notice, what control will there be over that outside patio? Is it noted that that temporary events notice will only apply to the inside of the rugby club? There has to be a restriction on the use of that patio after 10 o'clock at night. So it is possible, I've already done it twice, it is possible to put straightforward wording into the licence that actually records what everybody wants. It just needs the licensing department to listen to Paul and Ian, who know about rugby, and come up with a definition of exactly what the seasonal variation is intended to apply to. That's all that is required. Thank you. Oh, and one other point. In relation to the escalation path for residents, I think this will probably be addressed through the forum, but it would be helpful, as we did mention, if there could be an email address for local residents that is published on the website, on the events page perhaps, and a phone number, which we also mentioned, for people to call if there is an event, whether yours or a third party event. I understand you can't control mindless individuals walking across the pitch, but it's just establishing good communication and the opportunity for residents when the problem is happening and not 3 weeks after the event to actually be able to raise it and get something done about it. Thank you.
Just on the subject of temporary event notices, obviously temporary event notices are a mechanism under the Licensing Act 2003 to hold occasional events. They are served on the police and the Environmental Health Service. And one thing that can happen if the committee are minded to put a condition onto the licence regarding the patio is that any conditions that are on a premises licence can be transposed onto a temporary event notice. So we've heard what you're saying about the need to do that and noted.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Just a technical point, can be transferred or will be transferred?
Very technical point, yes. Wouldn't automatically be transposed. It would have to be at the request of environmental health.
Yeah, Paul, please. Thank you.
Not a question to respondents, but just more in support of, Lorna, Ian and many have laid out. With regards to the off sales and the cessation, is that the right one? The 2200, we are happy to agree with all of that if that can be written in. We are happy to work on that patio area element for any of that Southern Hemisphere start, whether it be in a Thames or wherever it is. We are in agreement of that and would like to work together with that one.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, Lady Anne, yes.
I'd just like to reiterate that I do think that communication is of paramount importance, particularly as in the past, when there have been problems, we have tried to telephone the rugby club and the telephone hasn't been answered, which has, been difficult to deal with. And indeed, I do feel that for my mother, she feels incredibly excluded. Being your closest neighbour from everything that happens, there has been a distinct lack of communication there. And I think that's something that's incredibly important going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you, noted. Yes, I think it's extremely important that availability is there all the time. Yeah, thank you. Applicant, do you have any further questions for the interested parties at all? Thank you. And responsible authorities, any questions for the interested parties? Yeah.
Not so much a question, just an apology to you. When I was shaking my head, I was just putting my environmental health food safety hat on and watching people throwing bread out of the back door. People, don't dispose of your food waste by throwing it out the back door, will you, Paul? Good. Thank you.
Thank you for that, yes. Interested parties, are you happy? Any have questions for each other at all? Are you happy that we've covered the ground? Yeah. Thank you. We should also cover the written representations from those who have indicated they are unable to attend today, which are set out in your agenda pack. Does anybody have any comments on the written representations other than what we've previously covered in the meeting so far? No, thank you. So we've all noted the written representations, of course, and read them thoroughly. So now I invite the applicant to sum up the application for a period of no longer than 5 minutes, please, and please don't introduce any new evidence at this stage, obviously. Thank you.
I won't take your 5 minutes. You hopefully now all understand what we're trying to do. We've taken on board the point around communication with our closest neighbours and residents. We want to work with them. We've been a fairly new committee. We're 3 or 4 years in now. It's about time we started looking out now and working with, and that's the next step for us. I hope we can find something that's agreeable. I think everybody understands what we're trying to achieve. Residents, the rugby club, and hopefully now yourselves. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, yeah, and thank you for the clarity of your application, how you presented it today. That's been very helpful. So before we move on to item 6, which is the exclusion of the press and the public, the subcommittee will now retire to deliberate, and the council's legal advisor will provide legal advice and will also be recording the subcommittee's decision. We don't know how long deliberations will take. Decision will be sent out to you all in writing as soon as possible. If you do want to wait, you're welcome to do so. The choice is yours. However, it could take a little time, and all parties do have the right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of the decision. Luke, is there anything you need to add at this stage?
No, Chair.
Thank you. So that leaves me to thank you all for your attendance this morning, and we're now moving on to item 6, which is the exclusion of the press and the public. Members, are you happy to exclude the press and public now?
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor.